Oh,
August 24th. Putin has had a heart attack.
we got in, look. We made it into the database.
Russian ships in the Pacific and Northern fleets, as well as nuclear submarines, are under a new attack by the SBU. It has been reported that Iskander ballistic missile launchers have been completely blown up, and several military airfields, which house strategic nuclear aviation assets, are currently burning intensely. The SBU has attacked facilities of Russia's nuclear triad.
Something's on fire.
Factories that produce Topol and Yar's intercontinental nuclear ballistic missiles have been blown up. Russia's formidable nuclear triad is currently under a significant attack. We have breaking news, dear friends. Ukraine has reportedly attacked two where the strategic nuclear bombers Engels and Diaghilevo are located. They didn't hit the target, not even close. For the very first time, Ukraine has reportedly attacked with ballistic missiles in the region of Bryansk. They are currently detonating, causing significant impact.
Basically, that's where the sheds are burning. Everything's on fire. Clearly, a lot is going to burn there. There don't seem to be any fire trucks yet. I wish they would get here soon.
This was a powerful special operation by the Security Service of Ukraine and other Ukrainian intelligence agencies. These were command posts for Iskander ballistic missiles in the Bryansk region. Ukraine is also preparing attacks on Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean. According to the publication, Kyiv is planning an operation using naval drones hidden in cargo containers to strike Russian ships and their allies in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean. Ukraine has attacked 2 out of 3 elements of the nuclear triad and is continuing further. A new phase of the SBU special operation is being prepared. Moreover, the Yaroslavl engine plant was on fire in Russia. This is a workshop at the plant where engines are manufactured for the Topol-M complex vehicles, the intercontinental nuclear missiles Topol-M. In other words, essentially the nuclear triad. Let's discuss all this with the president of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutaev. Ruslan Kutaev, welcome.
Dasha, good afternoon. Greetings to our viewers.
Ruslan Kutaev, we attacked ballistic missile launchers in Bryansk. This is a historic event. Let's start with that. What do you have to say about the attacks by the armed forces of Ukraine?
Well, this is a logical continuation of Ukraine's behavior. Ukraine is starting to act further, deeper, and the vast expanse of Russian military, let's say, industry has a great many enterprises of various types on its territory. Warehouses, military units, and as we can see, Ukrainian special services are demonstrating, first of all, that they know where everything is located. Secondly, that they are able to reach these targets. And thirdly, it is also very important to note that they have now started to systematically and quite dynamically carry out extensive and comprehensive operations to completely destroy all of this, which is a significant development. You were absolutely right to mention here that intercontinental ballistic missiles, which are indeed capable of carrying devastating nuclear warheads, are also currently being systematically destroyed. And here, I think it's entirely appropriate to remind our valued viewers that just yesterday, when the Russian Federation was actually meticulously preparing to launch a devastating, incredibly powerful blow against Ukraine, Ukrainian intelligence agencies precisely detected the significant activity of these very dangerous and highly mobile Iskander missile launchers, indicating their immediate threat. It is known for certain that 1 Iskander launcher was destroyed and 2 were damaged. So these 6 formidable missiles, which were in fact, we can reasonably assume, specifically aimed at some critically important administrative buildings in Kyiv, were essentially and completely destroyed. So the beginning of this insidious plan of Putin's was thwarted. And of course, after that pivotal moment, they tragically lost the crucial momentum that could have genuinely inspired the Russian forces, often referred to as orcs, and even profoundly motivated the increasingly isolated Vladimir Putin himself and his closest, most influential inner circle of advisors and confidants. That's why, look, it's very interesting how, hour by hour, the Ukrainian special services are behaving more and more actively. They not only inflict significant and substantial damage, but even in real time, they manage to meticulously observe, diligently gather crucial intelligence on the precise actions of Russian missile systems, effectively destroy them, and ultimately cause considerable and extensive losses. This is a significant improvement in the skills and conduct of the Ukrainian Special Services, military command, and of course the drone operators and missile crews. All of them are acting very successfully and skillfully, destroying Russian installations and the Russian military-industrial complex throughout the entire territory of Russia.
Operation Web continues. The SBU attacked two airfields, Engels and Diaghilevo, that is, two bases for Russia's strategic aviation, as well as an oil depot that supplies fuel to Russia's strategic nuclear aviation. At least 3 tanks are currently burning at the oil storage facility of the Crystal plant, part of the Ros Reserve. In other words, we are still attacking the airfields of strategic nuclear aviation. Operation Web is ongoing. A Mi-8 helicopter was destroyed and a Mi-35 was damaged as a result of drone attacks on Bryansk airport last night. Ramf Kamdich, the floor is yours.
These critical reserves, specifically the state reserves of essential fuel, including vital aviation fuel, yes, it is confirmed that 3 significant tanks were initially hit, but according to the very latest and most current information available, the devastating fire has regrettably already spread to 3 additional more tanks, and this alarming situation is continuously ongoing, and it's entirely possible that it could unfortunately spread even further, potentially impacting more areas. Firefighters, as we know from similar incidents at oil depots, often find it impossible even to contain such a fire. Usually it spreads from one tank to another, engulfing industrial facilities as well, such as oil processing plants, and all of it, let's say, falls prey to the flames. I truly think that this particular situation is also still completely unresolved. The raging fire is still burning intensely, and it's not yet entirely clear how much will ultimately be destroyed as a direct result of this entire operation and the specific actions of the Ukrainian side.
The fact that Ukraine is preparing attacks on Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean and that Sevastopol and Crimea have been hit by Neptunes, we'll discuss that a bit later. But for now, I'd like us to focus on a very interesting and important topic. Friends, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let me know what you think in the comments. This is about something like a hazel tree that exploded in the sky over Kazakhstan and broke apart into pieces. And the first to report on this were Russian military correspondents, also known as Russian war reporters or Z-bloggers. They wrote about the failed launch of the Oreshnik. Kapustin Yar is close to the border with Kazakhstan. That night, Putin decided to attack Ukraine. He did attack it, and he surely wanted to use the Oreshnik, an intercontinental missile. The question is, does this Oreshnik actually exist? And did it really explode? And why did it explode? Ramf Kamdich. Let's think this through together.
First of all, I served in Kopeysk. I served at the base, at the testing ground we're talking about now, in the automotive troops of the missile and artillery forces. And indeed, intercontinental ballistic missile tests were conducted there. There, the Astrakhan region borders Kazakhstan. Back then, it was the Guryev region. And indeed, tests were conducted there. That's where they were launched. And this launch, I analyzed what the experts are saying. The Oreshnik was most likely launched. And the fact that we have pictures and recordings most likely indicates that somewhere over the Kazakh steppes in the air, this Oreshnik exploded. And it was actually unable not only to complete, but even for the most part to begin its course toward Ukraine. What does this tell us? We know that the first time they fired the Oreshnik in the Dnipropetrovsk region, it achieved less than 5% of what Russia expected. There was no destruction there. They hit a training center, and that was all they managed to do. And now, too, it seems they tried to use the Oreshnik for this purpose. They were very upset. They needed to show the orcs back in Russia that they're still a force to be reckoned with, that they can do something, scare someone, but it's not working. It's just not working. And with the Iskanders, they had a failure as well. Ukraine destroyed them when they were deployed in the Bryansk region on the front line for an attack on Kyiv. With the Oreshnik, as we can see, it was a failure on all fronts. The scattered Russian rocket men and artillerymen, no matter how hard they try, just can't make it work. And it doesn't work because all of this is built exclusively on Soviet-era weaponry. There's nothing new. They haven't accomplished anything. All their claims, all those cartoons have remained just cartoons. And they can't move beyond that. This is precisely the profound and deeply concerning problem of Vladimir Putin, the Russian armed forces, and this entire aggressive and utterly ruthless Russian fascist horde that would like nothing more than to brutally drown the entire innocent population of Ukraine in a horrifying sea of blood. It's not because they genuinely don't want to achieve this terrible objective. It's because it just doesn't happen. They simply cannot effectively do it. This is what we absolutely need to fully understand and clearly realize in this critical moment.
Ruslan Kutaev, let's return to the topic of Russia's nuclear triad, which everyone is talking about now and which in fact was attacked by Ukraine and its intelligence services. All the world leaders have written about this now. They even reported on it. For example, Kaja Kallas officially stated that this is unprecedented. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and even Donald Trump, through his sources, conveyed that he too was stunned by the SBU's special operation. And as we discussed last time, it is necessary to attack the Russian Federation's fleet, the nuclear submarines, and the northern fleet of the Russian Federation, which was attacked. There is also the Pacific Fleet of the Russian Federation, which we have discussed. And just recently, on the eve of our stream today, the Washington Post published a piece stating that Ukraine is preparing attacks on Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean. According to the publication, Kyiv is planning an operation using naval drones hidden in cargo containers to strike Russian ships and their allies in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean. But it's very hard for me to imagine that Ukrainian intelligence agencies would announce their attacks through the Washington Post. Why was this done? And in general, let's discuss the attacks on the Pacific Fleet, on the Northern Fleet, and how much of a blow this would really be for Putin.
Dasha, let's first agree on the following. The Washington Post, along with Bloomberg and various other reputable and well-established newspapers, are certainly not the kind of media outlets that would, let's say, intentionally spread or disseminate fake news or misinformation. If these highly respected journalistic institutions wrote about a particular topic or event, then without a shadow of a doubt, they possess substantial and verifiable grounds to confidently assert and publicly state their findings and conclusions. First, second, if the Ukrainian Special Services, armed forces, and political leadership did not prohibit this from being published, it means they have sufficient grounds to believe that this operation is under extremely tight cover and that they are confident that, regardless of the fact that it has been made public, they will be able to carry this operation through to the end. Third, and this is very important, the Pacific Fleet, as we understand, North Korea is now, after all, Shoigu is currently in North Korea. Russia is demanding soldiers, and North Korea is supplying ammunition, weapons, and sending people. And right now, it is very important if Ukraine really does this, and I am absolutely convinced that they can indeed achieve this significant feat. And they managed to reach as far as Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, and the entire Far Eastern region. And if they even manage to successfully hit at least some of the ships, some of the crucial movements, I don't know, perhaps tankers or even cargo vessels, in that particular case, Russia will not just be merely put into an uncomfortable or slightly awkward position, but rather a profoundly difficult and strategically disadvantageous situation. Russia will be in a state of, well, crisis, because that's the area where, in fact, all those ports are basically left exposed, even the military bases. Everything that was there in terms of air defense and missile defense has been moved here, closer to the front, to Moscow, and away from there. If such a threat arises now, if suddenly drones start flying, and they will, then in that case, they'll have to pull something away from there, from the front, from here, from the center, and bam, transfer it over there to the Far East. That's bad news for Russia. How are they going to compensate for that? It's impossible to predict because China can't openly provide them with missile defense or air defense systems. North Korea simply doesn't have the means to protect itself from such weapons. Russia itself either doesn't produce them at all, or if it does, it's only 1 or 2 units per year. They don't have spare parts. They don't have the kind of machinery needed to manufacture such complex military equipment as missile defense and air defense systems. So, to be honest, these are extremely serious problems. But even here, you and I have talked about the fact that these problems would arise. We said that Ukraine is developing its technological capabilities. Germany. Merz stated that joint Ukrainian-German production facilities will, in the coming weeks, already be deployed to the front lines for Ukraine to effectively utilize and employ missiles produced jointly by Germany and Ukraine, specifically designed for their defense efforts. These are the first results not just of supplying weapons and ammunition, but of the work of joint ventures in Ukraine's military-industrial complex with Europeans, with the British, with the Germans, with the Poles, and these are exactly the results. That's why they're able to reach Irkutsk. That's why there are real reasons to believe they'll reach Vladivostok as well, and everywhere else, even Murmansk. So our expectations are not just fantasies. Our expectations are genuinely high, and all of this together is destroying Russian logistics, ammunition, weapons, people. Not only do they not have time to bring them to the front, they can't even get them to the front line zone. And that's where they're being destroyed. That's how they operate, constantly improving both the relationships and the overall approach to everything, too. It's no coincidence that Russian war correspondents are making a fuss. They're talking, for example, about the appointment of Madya as the commander of drones in Ukraine. What an uproar this caused. A man who sat in the trenches, but as some ordinary soldier or sergeant started out as an operator. Look at what he accomplished. Is something like that even possible in Russia? Never under any circumstances could such a rise happen in Russia just because of someone's personal qualities. It's impossible. But in Ukraine, it is possible, and that's why Ukraine is winning. That's why Ukrainian engineering thought is ahead. Why is that? Because here the principle is, if you can, take the lead, if you know how, create. That's the Ukrainian principle, and that's why they're winning. There's no need to be surprised. They will keep moving forward. That's the current outlook for this ongoing war.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
We are expecting another series of explosions in Crimea. In Simferopol, military targets were attacked with Neptunes. There is a kilometer-long line of trucks at the Chonhar checkpoint entering the annexed Crimea. A huge number of explosions. And once again, the Kerch Bridge is under attack. There's an alert there. But before we discuss this, the segment called Occupied Crimea, Shamkam Ilyich, I want us to talk about a very important point. The West, Europe, and America did not provide us with all the weapons because they were afraid of nuclear escalation. They were afraid of that nuclear triad. They were afraid that if they gave Ukraine weapons so that it could win, so that it could attack Russia deep within its territory, so that it could drive the Russians out of our land, Russia would start World War III, a nuclear war, and so on. And now Ukraine is demonstrating that we have attacked Russia's nuclear triad and there is no nuclear war. Let's just discuss this precedent together. So Ukraine did this with drones, right? Not with multi-billion-dollar weapons. In other words, we attacked multi-billion-dollar weapons, about $7 billion in total, using drones, unmanned aerial vehicles.
Indeed, at first, when this nuclear capability, more precisely, this highest level strategic aviation and its associated arsenal, was completely destroyed, it was widely assumed that after this catastrophic event, if they ever intended to actually use nuclear weapons in any capacity, their ability to do so would be severely compromised or entirely eliminated. By the way, that's exactly what they were shouting about over there. In Russia, in Moscow, the military correspondents, they were encouraging the political and military leadership to use it if they ever intended to do so. But we knew they would never do it. Why won't they do it? Because they are hostages of the situation they themselves created. Their families, their money, their status, all of it depends on the West. They study there, they live there, they keep their money there in the West. They didn't start this war to die or for some idea. They started it because of the whim of a madman who somewhere deep inside was offended by something. So what? The president is young, a progressive president of Ukraine, and it all bothered him, Putin, because in him there was youth, intelligence, and insight. And he decided, as he said, to teach this jester, this clown, a lesson. And in the end, it turned out that Putin himself was the jester, he was the clown, and he was the coward. As soon as a situation arises that could even be slightly dangerous, he runs away, he hides, he's afraid to make a decision. So after this truly brilliant operation was successfully carried out, he then called Trump and Trumpushka. He complained to him, specifically stating that Ukraine was indeed involved in various terrorist acts, and Trump's subsequent behavior remained quite unclear. The president of the greatest country, the state, what does he do? He is, in fact, making some kind of terrorist demands on behalf of a terrorist state. And Trump voices these demands to the whole world. In fact, these are Putin's demands, that Putin is going to respond to Ukraine in the harshest way possible. And Trump not only doesn't object, but moreover, he broadcasts this. So it turns out that Trump, in Putin's hands, is the tool used by terrorists. And here, what America was essentially obliged to do, there was no such behavior. But within America itself, this was given a very serious assessment. They pulled Trump up short. He did this somewhere in his talk, recorded it, and then they quickly removed this recording of Trump because it was absolutely clear that Trump had basically caved in and was afraid of Putin. Over there in America, they understand that Putin is using Trump as a tool. Putin did everything to put pressure on Ukraine. Putin did everything to use Trump. He really is taking advantage of him. And all of this, I repeat, taken together from different points of view and from different platforms, no matter who might be shouting or not shouting. In any case, Ukraine has not only not backed down, not only not stopped, and as we discussed a little earlier, Ukraine has continued its operations. Ukraine is not looking back at anyone. Today, Ukraine understands that it will only have what it achieves on its own. It's not European weapons, it's not American weapons, but Ukrainian drones that managed to accomplish what they did. And now, regarding what was said in the Washington Post, they didn't say they would strike with American Tomahawks. No, what they said was Ukrainian drones, they will reach Vladivostok and they will attack the Pacific Fleet. This is the true character of Ukraine, the character of the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian president. They don't stop at anything. They keep moving forward. And this is the only thing that can stop Trump, Putin, and everyone else.
Shamkam Ilyich, Russian public pages and media have reported that Putin had a heart attack, and that's why he hasn't appeared in public for a long time. I would like you to comment on this.
Well, I wouldn't rule it out. If he ever does have a heart attack, eventually it has to happen because it's one blow after another, literally one after the other, hitting him. Look, for example, at the meeting between the Chancellor of Germany and the President of the United States, he arranged his meeting in a very skillful, elegant, and diplomatic way. And what a principled stance the German leader demonstrated. He did not in any way, not on a single issue, refuse to support Ukraine. He made it absolutely and unequivocally clear to President Trump that the country which had launched this unprovoked attack was indeed Russia, and that it was undeniably the nation that was unequivocally bringing forth immense evil and widespread destruction upon the world. And so when Ukraine is supported from all sides, when Ukraine is advancing on the front lines, when Ukrainians are growing stronger, just look at how much effort and money has been poured into Ukrainian society just to find at least 3 people who would crow that Zelensky should be removed or that the war should be stopped. They can't even find 2 or 3 people to support what they've been shouting about for 3.5 years to get support in Ukraine, in Ukrainian society, among the Ukrainian people. Of course, from this, not only will he have a heart attack, I think soon he'll just completely kick the bucket. And that's why I think others understand this too, other people, even those close to him. Actually, as we've discussed before, that's the reason why, in my opinion. Right now, most likely, there are serious talks about sending Putin into retirement, and in order to keep him from interfering, they're considering someone from among his daughters. There's talk about Tikhanova, and that's why I think this is also real, and it's also serious. Putin understands he can't win. Putin understands he hoped that Trump could do something, that he could deliver Ukraine as a side that has already capitulated. Trump can't do that. He can't, because besides Trump, there's also Congress, there's the US Senate, and in the end, there's the American judiciary, and there are Americans, 67% of whom support Ukraine. And all of this together doesn't even give the Russian political leadership hope that help might come from somewhere, that by forcing Ukraine and Europe, which is a close ally of Ukraine, to yield, it would grant Russia victory. Victory Russia cannot win. Russia needs someone to hand them victory. There is no such player today who can do that. And that's why we can confidently say Ukraine is moving toward its victory. Ukraine is doing everything to win. And going forward, this will happen much more often and more effectively. And over there on the Russian side, they know and understand this.
Some Kaddish to sum up about the occupied Crimea. Right now, we are carrying out a huge number of special operations, attacking the military airfield and the Kerch Bridge for the third time. And now, once again, Neptunes are attacking Crimea. Moreover, according to local social media channels, the entry of trucks onto the Kerch Bridge has been closed. When entering the peninsula via the so-called land corridor through the occupied territories, security forces are searching every truck with a magnifying glass in search of friendly drones. Well, and in general, there is already information that the Kerch Bridge is closed again, and it is expecting a strike. There's an air raid alert. What do you think?
After the Ukrainian Neptunes, German Tauruses will follow. I have no doubt about that. They're taking aim. Did you notice? Right now, there's a lot of commotion around the Kerch Bridge, both from the land side, from Crimea and from Krasnodar, from both sides of the Kerch Bridge, and from the water, and these maritime drones. Everything is being deployed now. They're currently searching for the most effective way to strike. Strikes with Tauruses. The effectiveness of these missiles has long been known worldwide. They will definitely try them out on the Kerch Bridge. Over there in Crimea, they already understand this. They understand why. How do I know this? They're fleeing from there. People are just leaving. Those who came to set up a business, some were lured in, some came voluntarily, some wanted to live there, some needed to settle down. They understand that you can't build a life there anymore. They realize the noose is tightening. So what do they want? They want to escape from Crimea. They understand that they could become hostages. Not hostages of Ukraine, but hostages of the FSB NKVD troops who won't let them leave and will keep them as hostages because there's a risk that through this bottleneck in the Kherson region, the Ukrainian army might and will definitely attack Crimea as well. That's why they will continue trying to keep these residents of Crimea as hostages. That's why everyone understands, and that's why everyone is fleeing.
Yes, by any means, breaststroke, freestyle, however you like, just urgently leave Ukrainian Crimea. A brilliant analysis by the president of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutaev. Dear friends, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the comments, write a few kind words in support of Ukraine and the armed forces of Ukraine, because we are working for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. That's why every comment and every subscription from you is priceless. Thank you. Shalva Kamzic, thank you very much. As always, see you soon.
See you soon. Dear friends, please support Dasha and her channel. You will hear good news from this channel many more times. All the best. Take care.